The night was dark, cold, and wet. Rain hit the roof of Eli's small farmhouse like tiny fists. The wind howled outside, and the fields were covered in thick mud. Eli sat alone in his kitchen, drinking a warm cup of synth tea. His radio played soft music, and the fire crackled gently beside him. Then came a sound that didn't belong, a knock, slow and weak. Another knock, softer this time, like someone losing strength. Eli stood up quickly and grabbed his old shotgun. He wasn't used to visitors, especially not on stormy nights. He opened the door and froze. There, standing in the rain, was a woman. Not human, her skin had a faint glow, her eyes too large. Too sad, she wore a torn cloak that barely covered her thin body. In her arms, she held a child, small and quiet, eyes half shut. "Please," the woman whispered, her voice shaking. "Just feed my daughter." She lowered her head, rain dripping down her cheeks like tears. "I'll stay quiet. I'll cook. I'll clean. I'll stay in your bed if you want." Her voice broke at the end, but she didn't cry. She looked like someone who had cried too much already. Eli didn't say anything at first. He looked at the girl in her arms, too tired to cry, too weak even to move. He lowered his shotgun, stepped aside, and nodded. "Come in," he said quietly. The woman stepped inside, her legs shaking. She didn't sit, didn't speak, just looked around as if afraid of breaking something. Eli closed the door behind them and pointed to the couch. "You can rest there," he said. "I'll get something warm." The woman gently laid her daughter on the couch and covered her with her own cloak. Then she stood again, not sitting, just watching her child. Her hands shook, but she said nothing. Eli moved quickly, heating some broth. He placed the bowl in front of the child. The girl didn't react, too weak. The mother leaned down and whispered something in her own language. The child opened her eyes and slowly, with shaking hands, took a spoonful. "She hasn't eaten in 2 days," the woman said softly, her voice still shaking, her back still straight, like she was waiting to be judged. "I don't care what you do to me, just don't let her starve." Eli frowned, then reached into the cupboard and pulled out bread, fruit, and a warm blanket. He handed the blanket to the woman, who stared at it like it was gold. "Sit," he said, and this time she obeyed. The fire warmed the room, and for the first time, the child smiled faintly. The woman's shoulders relaxed just a little. "Your name?" Eli asked. "Zara." She replied. "My daughter is Lissa. Where are you from?" He asked, but Zara didn't answer. She just looked at the fire, then down at her child. Her silence said more than words could. Eli didn't push. He knew that look. He'd seen it in refugees, in war survivors, the look of someone running not just from enemies, but from nightmares. After some time, Zara stood and picked up the empty bowl. She walked into the kitchen and started washing it without being told. Eli watched her, confused, surprised, but said nothing. She dried the bowl and placed it back where it belonged. Then she turned to him and bowed her head. "Thank you," she said. "I will work for the food, for the space, for her life. I will stay out of your way, and if you need comfort, I will give that to." Eli shook his head. "I didn't let you in for that," he said. "You and your daughter can stay. For now, just rest." Zara looked shocked, like she didn't understand kindness. She opened her mouth, closed it, and finally nodded. The storm outside roared louder, but inside the farmhouse, a strange calm had settled. Lissa slept peacefully for the first time in days. Zara sat beside her, brushing her small hair gently. Eli sat by the window, watching the rain, but his thoughts were not on the weather anymore. Who were they really? Where had they come from? And what danger might follow them here? But those questions could wait for now. Someone had come to his door, not with weapons, not with lies, but with a quiet voice and a starving child. And Eli had made his choice. The next morning, Eli woke. Up before sunrise, his small farmhouse felt different now. Not as quiet, not as empty. He stood at the window, watching the gray light grow over his muddy fields. Then he heard movement in the kitchen. Soft and careful, Zara was already awake. Standing near the stove, she had found the old pot and was heating water. She moved slowly, like she didn't want to be seen, like a ghost afraid to make a sound. Eli didn't say anything at first. He just watched her work. Her hands were steady now, her face calm, but her eyes kept glancing toward the living room where her daughter still slept. "You don't have to cook," Eli finally said. Zara turned. Around her expression neutral, "I said I would cook," she replied softly, "and I keep my word." Eli didn't argue. He walked over, poured himself a cup of tea, and sat at the small wooden table. Zara placed a bowl of warmed grains in front of him and stood back. "Sit down," he said. But she shook her head. "I eat later, after Lissa." Eli didn't like it, but he let it be. The tension in the room was like stretched string, quiet but ready to snap. Later that morning, Lissa woke up. She was weak. But her little voice whispered, "Mama," and her eyes searched the room. Zara rushed to her side, helped her sit up, and offered her warm soup. Eli watched from the corner, not speaking. He noticed how Lissa's fingers trembled, how her cheeks were too thin, but he also saw her smile soft and real as she sipped the soup. After breakfast, Zara asked if she could clean, without waiting for an answer. She began wiping the counters, sweeping the floor. She moved like someone who had done this before. Many times, too many times. Eli stepped outside to check his tool shed. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet. He breathed the cold air and tried to clear his mind. What had he done? He had taken in two strangers' aliens. Fugitives, maybe. He didn't even know who or what they were running from. But when he saw Lissa's small smile and the way Zara whispered lullabies in a strange language, he knew he couldn't throw them out. Inside, Zara found an old basket of clothes near the laundry bin. She sorted them, washed them by hand, and hung them outside without being asked. Eli returned and found her hanging his shirts in the weak morning sun. "You don't have to do all this," he said again. "I know," she said. "But if I don't help, I feel useless." Eli didn't know how to respond to that. So he just nodded and walked away. The rest of the day passed quietly. Zara barely spoke, and when she did, her words were careful and soft. Lissa rested on the couch, wrapped in warm blankets, sipping small meals. She didn't say much either, but she stared at Eli with wide, curious eyes, like she couldn't believe someone like him existed at sunset. Eli cooked a stew when he brought bowls for everyone. Zara pushed hers away. "Give it to her," she said. Nodding toward Lisa, Eli frowned. "There's enough for everyone." Zara looked at the bowl again, then at him. Like she wasn't sure if she could believe him. Finally, she picked up the spoon. Slowly, as if testing a dream, after dinner. The house grew quiet again. The fire burned low. And the only sound was the ticking of the old clock. Zara sat near the hearth, brushing Lissa's hair with her fingers. Eli sat in his chair, pretending to read, but his eyes kept drifting toward them at one point. Lissa looked at him and whispered, "Papa." Zara's hand froze in her daughter's hair. Eli looked up, shocked. Zara turned her head away, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," she said. She used to call her real father that. "He's gone," Eli didn't know what to say. He nodded slowly and looked back at his book. But something inside him shifted. That night, Eli offered them the guest room. Zara refused at first, saying the couch was enough. But Lissa had already curled up on the bed, smiling in her sleep, so Zara accepted. Bowing her head in thanks, Eli lay in his own bed later, staring at the ceiling. He had lived alone for many years. He never minded the silence. But now, the silence felt different, warmer. Fuller, not empty, but alive. Still, questions burned in his mind. Who is Zara really? What had she been through? Why did she flinch every time someone raised their voice? Why did she offer her body so easily, as if it meant nothing? Eli didn't know the answers, but he knew one thing. He couldn't look away. Now, not from her, not from the child, not from the quiet sadness that hung over them like a shadow. The next day would bring more questions. But tonight, he simply listened to the sound of soft breathing, to the house no longer empty, and to the heartbeat of a new beginning he didn't ask for but maybe needed all along. The night fell quietly. The sky was clear, but the air was cold. Inside the farmhouse, the fire burned low. Zara tucked Lissa into bed. Brushing the child's soft hair back gently, Eli watched from the doorway, leaning against the frame. It had become a strange routine. Silent meals, quiet work, a peaceful kind of tension. But tonight, something felt wrong. Lissa's cheeks were too red, her skin too hot. Zara frowned and placed a hand on her daughter's forehead. She pulled back suddenly, her fingers shaking. "She's burning," she whispered. Too hot, Eli stepped forward, now serious. He touched Lissa's forehead, and his eyes narrowed. "This is more than a little cold," he said. Zara held her daughter close, her hands trembling. "I've seen this before," she whispered. "It spreads fast. It takes them in sleep." Eli didn't waste time. "Get your coat," he said. "I'm taking you both to someone who can help." "But no buts," he cut in. "I know a medic, old but sharp, 10 kilometers from here." Zara nodded quickly and wrapped Lissa in a thick blanket. Eli grabbed his coat and keys, then helped them into his old hover truck. The engine coughed but started. They sped into the night, the wind slicing across the empty road. Zara held Lissa tight in the back seat, rocking gently. Her face was pale. Her eyes full of fear, she whispered ancient words, lullabies from her homeland. Eli drove fast. One hand on the wheel, one eye on the stars. The medic's cabin was small and hidden deep in the trees. Old lights flickered above the door as they pulled, and Eli jumped out, banging on the door. "Marlowe?" he shouted. "It's urgent." The door opened slowly, and a wrinkled old human with cybernetic eyes stepped out. He took one look at Lissa and waved them inside. "Put her on the table," he said. "Let me see." Marlowe worked fast, checking vitals, scanning her skin. Zara stood nearby, her fists clenched tight. Eli stayed quiet, knowing better than to interrupt. "This child isn't fully human," Marlowe said at last. Zara's face turned hard, eyes sharp. "She's mine," she said coldly. "That's all you need to know?" Marlowe raised an eyebrow, but didn't argue. "She's got fire fever," he explained. "Rare, deadly, if untreated, but I've got something that might work." He rummaged through drawers, pulling out old vials and a medgun. "This isn't legal in half the sectors," he muttered. "But it works." He injected Lissa gently, then covered her with a heat blanket. "She'll sleep for hours," he said. "If she makes it through tonight, she'll live." Zara collapsed into a chair, covering her face for the first time. Eli saw her crying out loud, not broken, just silent tears falling down her face. He sat beside her and placed a hand on her shoulder. She didn't push it away. "You saved her," she whispered. "You didn't have to, but you did." Eli looked at her calm and quiet. "I couldn't just watch her die," he said. "I've seen too much of that already." Later, while Lissa slept, Marlowe sat with Eli in the other room. "She's not just some traveler," Marlowe said softly. "She's running." Eli nodded. "I figured as much. People don't offer their bodies for food unless they're desperate or broken." Eli said nothing. Marlowe leaned back in his chair. "She's dangerous, or someone thinks she is. Maybe," Eli replied. "But she's also a mother. In the morning, Lissa opened her eyes slowly. Her fever had broken. Her skin no longer burned. Zara rushed to her side, holding her close and kissing her forehead. Eli smiled quietly, standing in the doorway. They stayed with Marlowe for another hour. Then he gave them some extra medicine and a blanket warmer. "Watch her closely," he warned. "She's not out of danger yet." As they drove back to the farmhouse, the sun rose slowly over the hills. Zara sat in the front seat this time, holding Lissa on her lap. She looked at Eli, her voice soft. "You should have left us, but you didn't." Eli kept his eyes on the road. "I couldn't." Back at the house, Zara tucked Lissa into the guest bed and sat beside her. She didn't sing this time. She just watched her daughter sleep. A soft smile on her lips. Eli brought her tea and placed it on the table beside her. She looked up and whispered, "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," he said. "Just stay alive." That night, the house was quiet again, but it wasn't cold. Not anymore. Because, in the silence, something new had grown. Not just safety, not just shelter, but something close to trust. And for the first time in years, Eli didn't feel so alone. The days passed slowly after the fever. Lissa's strength returned little by little. She laughed sometimes now. Though only in soft giggles, Zara began to smile again. But her eyes still held something like a shadow from long ago. Eli noticed it every time she stood at the window too long, staring at the sky. Every time she jumped at a sudden sound. Every time she paused before speaking, as if choosing the right words to survive. Eli wanted to ask about her past, but he waited. Knowing some stories can't be pulled, only offered one evening, after Lissa had fallen asleep on the couch with a toy Eli had carved from old wood. Zara stood by the fire, silent. Eli was cleaning his tools when he finally asked gently, "Who were you before this?" Zara didn't answer right away. She kept her eyes on the flames, her voice quiet. "I was not always this," she said. "I was born in the slave camps of Viren Delta." Eli stopped what he was doing, listening closely. "My people were sold as workers, breeders, soldiers," she continued. "I was trained young to obey, to fight, to please." She turned to face him, her face hard, but her eyes full of pain. "I was good at hiding pain," she said. "So they promoted me, gave me a name, a title. I became a handler, one who trained others." Eli's heart sank as he listened. Zara took a deep breath. "I met Lissa's father during a raid," she said. "He was kind for a time, but he was weak, and he was caught. They punished me for loving him. They marked me." She turned slightly, pulling down her collar. Across her back was a long scar, raised and deep. "They said love made me disobedient," she whispered, "so I ran." Eli stood frozen, unsure what to say. Zara looked toward Lissa, her voice softer now. "She was all I could take with me. They chased us across 2 sectors. They hid on cargo ships, lived in waste ports. Begged for food." She turned to Eli again, her face softer. "But this place. It's the first time I felt safe. You didn't ask me to pay for it with my body." Eli looked down, unsure how to meet her gaze. "I'm not like the ones who hurt you," he said finally. "I don't want payment. I want peace." Zara gave a small nod but didn't speak. Instead, she walked to the window, staring up at the stars. "They'll come," she whispered. "Not today, but they will." Eli stepped beside her, his voice low. "Let them come," he said. "This is my home and you're under my roof. I'll protect you." Zara smiled faintly, then turned to go check on Lissa. Eli stood there, staring into the night sky, wondering how far danger truly was. The next day, while checking the satellite fence around the farm, Eli noticed something strange. A signal short and silent flashed on his old comms reader. It was encrypted, alien-coded. He brought it back to the house and showed Zara. Her face turned pale. "That's a location ping," she said. "They know I'm on this planet now." Eli didn't panic. Instead, he pulled an old crate from under the floorboards. Inside were parts of a forgotten security system, weapons, and tools from his old days as a border scout. "I used to prepare for pirates," he said. "Didn't think I'd be protecting anyone again." Zara helped him set up traps around the farm. They worked in silence, side by side, and for the first time, Eli noticed how skilled she was. She moved like a soldier, fast, smart, quiet, that night. After Lisa was asleep again, Eli brought 2 mugs of tea and sat with Zara by the fire. "Do you ever miss your world?" he asked. Zara stared at the fire for a long time. "No," she said at last, "because I never had one. My world was cages, collars, and cold nights. But here, it smells like freedom." Eli smiled slightly. He didn't say it, but he felt it too. He had lived a life of silence, a routine without meaning. But now the house had laughter, small feet running, and soft voices in the morning. Things he didn't know he needed until they came. As the fire dimmed and the house grew quiet again, Zara whispered one last thing. "If I die, take care of her." Eli looked her in the eyes. "No," he said. "We live, all of us, together, outside." Far above the clouds, a ship floated silently in orbit, watching, waiting, but down below, in a small farmhouse filled with whispers, warmth, and broken souls trying to heal, a quiet war was already being prepared, and Eli was no longer alone. The sun rose slowly over Eli's farm, but the morning didn't feel peaceful. The wind was too still, the birds too quiet. Zara stood at the window again, her eyes searching the sky. Something inside her told her the danger was getting close. Eli had spent the night checking wires, adjusting turrets, and updating the old security drones. Zara worked beside him, fast and silent, her movements full of focus. They didn't speak much, but the tension between them was clear. This wasn't just preparation, it was the calm before the storm. By midday, the sound of a distant hum echoed. In the sky, Zara's head snapped up. "That's not a local ship," she whispered. Eli grabbed his scanner and walked outside. A sleek black speeder descended just beyond the tree line. No markings, no call signal, no lights. A tall figure stepped out, cloaked in dark armor. His helmet hid his face, but the long plasma rifle strapped across his back was clear enough. He walked with slow, confident steps, like he knew this wasn't a visit, this was a hunt. Eli met him halfway, his old blaster hidden behind his coat. "You lost?" Eli asked calmly. The stranger didn't answer right away. Then a low, filtered voice spoke from behind the helmet. "I'm looking for someone." "Lots of people out here," Eli said. "You'll have to be more specific." The stranger tilted his head slightly. "She's not human, travels with a child. Fugitive property." Eli's jaw clenched. "There's no one like that here." He lied smoothly. The hunter took a slow step forward. His scanner beeped softly. "You're lying," he said. "Her signal is weak, but it's here." Before Eli could respond, Zara's voice cut through the silence. "She's not property." She stood in the doorway, her arms firm at her sides. "She's my daughter, and I am no one's slave." The hunter turned, slowly. Then his hand moved toward his weapon. But Eli was faster. He raised his blaster and fired a warning shot into the ground near the hunter's feet. "That's close enough," Eli said, his voice hard now. The hunter looked down at the dirt, then back at Eli. "You don't know what she is," he growled. "I know what she's not," Eli replied. "She's not yours." The hunter took another step. Zara didn't move. But then, from behind the barn, one of Eli's old security drones rose up, worry softly, then another, and Another 3 rusty but functional drones locked their sights on the hunter. The hunter paused, calculating. Then he spoke quietly. "This isn't over." He turned, walked back to his ship, and within seconds, the speeder rose into the air and vanished into the clouds. Eli let out a breath, lowered his blaster. Zara walked to his side, still watching the sky. "He was just the first," she said. Eli nodded. "I figured." They spent the rest of the day reinforcing the defenses. Eli taught Zara how to operate the turret system. Zara showed Eli how to rig proximity alarms using alien tech. Together, they became something more than strangers, more than just protector and guest. They became partners that evening. Lissa asked what the loud noise had been. Zara knelt beside her and brushed her hair gently. "Just wind and machines. My star," she said softly. "Everything is safe." Lissa nodded sleepily and hugged Zara tight. Later that night, Eli poured 2 mugs of hot cider and handed one to Zara. They sat on the porch watching the stars. "Thank you," she said quietly. Eli looked at her and smiled slightly. "You don't have to thank me every time." Zara didn't smile, but her voice was softer. "I do, because no one else ever did this for me." Eli took a sip from his mug and leaned back. "You're not just surviving anymore," he said. "You're fighting." Zara looked down at her hands, "Because now I have something worth protecting." They sat in silence for a while, until Zara finally whispered, "That hunter. He'll report back. He won't stop." Eli nodded slowly. "Then, neither will we." Inside, Lissa slept peacefully. Outside, 2 broken souls prepared for another storm. The past had sent its first warning, but now the future was being written. A quiet farm, under a quiet sky, by a human and a hunted alien mother who was no longer afraid to stand her ground. Asterisk, the days after the hunter's visit passed with quiet urgency. Eli and Zara worked from sunrise to sunset. The farm was no longer just a home, it was becoming a fortress. Fences were strengthened, alarms buried in the soil, and old defense systems pulled from dusty storage. Zara rewired the drones with alien tech, making them faster, sharper, smarter. Eli installed manual turrets and motion lights. Every window was reinforced and every exit was planned. They didn't speak much about the next attack, but they both knew it was coming. Inside the farmhouse, life continued. Lissa's laughter returned, light and warm. She helped with small tasks, drawing pictures with burnt sticks on old paper. She called Eli Papa, now without hesitation, and though he never said it aloud, the word filled something empty inside him. Zara watched the bond grow and stayed quiet. Sometimes she smiled, sometimes she looked away. She was happy her daughter was healing, but afraid of what that happiness might cost. One evening, as Eli adjusted the solar panel wiring, Zara came beside him. "Everything here. It feels like it's mine too," she said. Eli nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "It is," he replied. "You've earned it?" Zara hesitated, then said, "I've never had a place that was mine, not even a room." Eli looked at her. Not with pity, but understanding. "You do now," he said. "This land, this house. It's yours too." That night, the stars were unusually bright. Zara stood outside alone. Staring upward, Eli joined her with 2 mugs of warm cider. "You think they're watching us?" he asked quietly. Zara didn't answer for a while. "Yes." She finally whispered, "Always. They'll come in numbers this time." She continued, "Not just one. They'll bring trackers, machines, soldiers if they have to." Eli looked across the fields, his jaw firm. "Then we'll give them a fight they won't forget." Zara turned to face him, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't want Lissa to live in war. I ran so she could live free." Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. "She won't grow up in chains," he said. Not while I'm alive. That night, after Lissa fell asleep with her arms around a handmade wooden rabbit Eli had carved, Zara sat by the fire. She stared at the flames. Lost in thought, Eli sat across from her, sharpening a blade slowly. I trained to fight. But I never wanted to be a soldier, Zara said suddenly. Eli looked up, but didn't speak. I wanted to be a mother. That's all, she continued. Just a mother. You still are, Eli said, his voice calm. She smiled faintly. And you? She asked, what did you want before this? Eli leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. I wanted to be alone, he said simply. I thought peace was silence, but now, I think peace is hearing Lissa laugh. They both smiled quietly, the fire dancing in their eyes. The next morning, a small ship appeared in the distance. It hovered low, but didn't land. A drone dropped from its underside and flew toward the farmhouse. Zara spotted it first and shouted. Eli ran to the panel and triggered the drone. Net-thin wires fired into the air. Trapping the scout mid-flight, it sparked and twitched, then dropped to the ground. They're testing our defenses, Zara said. Eli nodded. Let them, together. They carried the broken drone into the barn. Zara opened it, examined the circuitry, and pulled a blinking chip from inside. This chip sends tracking signals, she said. But if I reverse it, I can send them false data. Think it'll work? Eli asked. Zara smiled for the first time that day. With me. Yes, they worked all day to modify the chip. Zara sent fake signals out into the hills, making it look like they were constantly moving. Eli reinforced the perimeter and moved extra supplies into the storm shelter, just in case, that night. Lissa drew a picture of their house, with a big tree beside it and 3 people standing outside, one tall, one with long hair, and one small figure in the middle. Zara looked at the picture for a long time, then hugged her daughter gently. You really think this will last? She asked Eli later, as they stood by the porch again. Eli looked at the house, at the field, at the stars above. No, he said. Not if we wait, but if we fight, maybe it can. Zara stepped closer, her voice quiet. Then I'll fight for this home, for her, for you, and in that moment, they were no longer just survivors. They were something stronger. A family forged by pain, held together by choice. Preparing for a war they never asked for, but ready to defend the one place that had finally given them hope. The night fell heavy. Clouds gathered thick across the sky, hiding the stars. The air around Eli's farm was quiet, but not the kind of quiet that meant peace. It was the silence that came before something terrible. Zara stood at the barn's edge, her long cloak moving in the wind. She could feel it in her bones. Their time had run out. Lissa was asleep, unaware of the danger just hours away. Eli stood beside her, his old blaster strapped tight across his chest. I counted 3 ships on approach, he said softly, coming low and slow. They're trying not to scare the locals. Zara's eyes didn't blink. They're here for me, she said, but they won't leave with me. They didn't run. They didn't hide. Instead, they activated every defense system on the farm. Drones buzzed silently over the fields. Turrets turned toward the tree line. The ground sensors lit up like fireflies. Then, a bright flash cut through the darkness. 3 dark ships landed in the open field across the fence. The engines hissed and stopped. From the center one, a ramp opened, and armored figures stepped out. 6 of them, cold, tall, faceless. One raised a speaker to his mouth. Zara Viren Delta. The voice boomed. You are classified as lost property. You are ordered to surrender the child and return. For processing, Zara stepped forward slowly. No, she said, clear and calm. She's not property, and neither am I. The lead soldier took 1 step forward. Eli raised his blaster. The drones circled above. Humming, "You have 5 seconds," the voice warned. 5 seconds, Eli whispered. "That's enough." He fired first. The shot hit the lead soldier's shoulder, knocking him back. The rest responded instantly. But the drones were faster. They dropped smoke canisters, covered the field. In haze and rain stun bursts from above, Zara moved like lightning, flipping through the smoke. She struck one soldier in the helmet, grabbed his weapon, and tossed it aside. Her training returned like fire. And Eli moved with her, covering her back. It wasn't a fair fight, but it was a smart one. They knew every corner of the land. The soldiers didn't. One by one, they fell, some stunned, some trapped in the electrified nets Zara had buried. Near the fences, within minutes, silence returned. Only 2 ships remained powered, and one dragged away a fallen soldier. They were retreating. Zara stood at the edge of the field. Bruised, but breathing, Eli limped beside her, his coat torn. Lissa had woken during the fight, but stayed hidden, just as Zara told her. Now she ran out crying, "Mama." And threw her arms around Zara's legs. Zara fell to her knees and held her tight, tears running down her face for the first time in years. Eli dropped his weapon and sighed. "It's over," he said. Zara looked at the sky, watching the ships vanish into darkness. "No," she whispered. "It's just beginning." Over the next few days, neighbors came. People who once avoided Eli now came with questions, with help, with food. They had seen the lights, heard the battle. And when Eli finally told them the truth, they didn't run. They stayed, listened, and nodded. One old woman placed her hand on Lissa's head and said, "Any child who smiles like that belongs here." A man who ran the metal shop offered to repair Eli's drone wings. Even the mayor visited, looked around, and said, "Strange things are coming to this world, but this farm, this family, deserves to stay." Zara was shocked. All her life she had only known fear and chains. But now strangers offered kindness, offered to stand by her. She looked at Eli one night, while Lissa was drawing more pictures near the fire. "You could have sent us away," she said. "You could have stayed safe." Eli shook his head. "I didn't want safety," he said. "I wanted something real." Zara placed her hand on his. "This place is real," she whispered, "because of you." And in that moment, she made her choice. She could have kept running, could have taken her daughter and disappeared into the stars, but she didn't. She stayed for her daughter, for her heart, and for the man who showed her what it meant to be more than just a survivor. From that day forward, the farmhouse was no longer just a quiet piece of land. It was a home, a place of protection, of love, of strength, and anyone who came to take it again would find something they didn't expect. A family worth fighting for. Asterisk.